What you are looking at was once considered the most dangerous amusement park ever built. This single stretch of land combined water slides, concrete tracks, and mechanical rides into one continuous experiment in risk. Behind it all was one man, Eugene Mulvihill, a former Wall Street trader who believed rules slowed innovation and danger made things exciting. Under his direction, the park operated with minimal oversight, inexperienced staff, and attractions that pushed far beyond accepted safety limits. This was Action Park. Eugene Mulvihill, known simply as Gene, ran Great American Recreation, the company behind a ski resort in Vernon Valley, New Jersey. Winters were perfect. Snow blanketed the slopes, visitors poured in, and business boomed. But come spring, the snow melted, the guests disappeared, and with them, the money. Gene knew he had a problem, a big one. If the resort was going to survive beyond winter, he had to rethink what a ski resort could be in the summer. By the mid-1970s, resorts across the country were trying something new, summer attractions. In 1976, he built a 2,700-foot alpine slide down one of the steep trails. Unlike conventional rides, guests controlled their own speed with only two real options: slow, or the infamous death awaits. The slide was just the beginning. Soon came water slides and go-karts. Over the next 20 years, it expanded into more than 70 rides, under its later, more notorious name, Action Park. So, what were the park's deadliest rides? We are starting off with Surf Hill, a multi-lane racing water slide that caused a variety of injuries. Riders would lie on foam mats and race side by side down steep fiberglass lanes toward shallow splash pools at the bottom. Minimal lane barriers meant that even minor mistakes could result in collisions with other riders, rough landings, or loss of control. One lane, infamously nicknamed the Backbreaker, became notorious for the sudden lift it gave riders in the middle of the slide, causing painful landings and frequent injuries. Although there were no recorded fatalities on Surf Hill, numerous injuries occurred. Spectators at the bottom had a particularly pleasant view. A snack bar was conveniently placed near the end of the slide, giving guests front row seats to the frequent wardrobe malfunctions caused by the ride's speed and sudden lifts. Bikinis and swimsuits often slipped or fell off entirely, making Surf Hill a spectacle for both riders and onlookers. Next up is one of Action Park's original attractions, the Alpine Slide, a 2,700-foot track of concrete and fiberglass snaking down the mountain with guests controlling their own sleds. In July 1980, the ride claimed its first known fatality. 19-year-old George Larson Jr. was riding the Alpine Slide when his sled malfunctioned, sending him off the track and crashing him headfirst into rocks. He slipped into a coma and died 8 days later. The park infamously tried to cover it up by claiming he was riding recklessly after hours, a move designed to avoid mandatory reporting to state regulators. On top of this tragedy, state records from the mid-1980s documented dozens of serious injuries on the Alpine Slide, including at least 26 head injuries and 14 fractures from 1984 to 1985. One slight miscalculation, broken brake, or track inconsistency could send them hurtling off the track, making it one of Action Park's most notorious rides. The Tarzan Swing was a ride that transformed a simple childhood pastime into a high-stakes test of survival. You can expect to learn how a 20-foot cable and a pool of freezing water created one of the most dangerous attractions in the park's history. The Tarzan Swing consisted of a long steel cable hanging from a high platform over a deep, spring-fed pond. The premise was simple: grab the bar, swing out over the water, and let go at the peak of the arc. The water in the gorge was notoriously cold, often staying around 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature differential frequently caused cold water shock, a physiological reaction that could cause riders to gasp involuntarily, suck in water, or even suffer heart palpitations. The Tarzan Swing was responsible for one of the park's most tragic incidents. In 1984, an unnamed guest suffered a fatal heart attack triggered by the shock of the icy water after plunging in from the swing. Much like Surf Hill, the Tarzan Swing swing was a spectator sport. Crowds would gather to watch riders attempt increasingly dangerous flips and maneuvers. Between the risk of drowning and the physical demand of the swing, it remains one of the most infamous symbols of the park's choose-your-own-adventure approach to safety. After the chaos of the Tarzan swing, Action Park offered something that looked calmer and more familiar. The wave pool appeared to be a place to relax. In reality, it would become the deadliest attraction in the entire park. The wave pool was designed to simulate ocean conditions, producing large mechanical waves in a deep pool that could reach heights above a meter. But unlike an actual beach, there was no salt in the water, meaning swimmers were noticeably less buoyant. The attraction quickly earned the nickname the Grave Pool, due to the number of serious incidents that occurred there. Between 1982 and 1987, at least 3 people drowned in the wave pool. The first death occurred on July 24, 1982, when 15-year-old George P. Lopez was pulled under. The immense crowd and churning water prevented lifeguards from spotting him until it was too late. On August 27, 1984, 20-year-old Donald DePass succumbed to exhaustion while fighting the powerful machine-generated currents and the lack of buoyancy in the pool's fresh water. The final fatality took place on July 19, 1987, when 18-year-old Gregory Grandchamps was discovered unconscious beneath the surface during an active wave cycle. Former employees have stated that lifeguards routinely pulled multiple struggling swimmers from the water each day. Unlike the park's more extreme rides, the wave pool did not look dangerous. That illusion of safety made it especially lethal. Visitors underestimated it, entered casually, and found themselves overwhelmed by forces they could not control. More than any slide or stunt, the wave pool exposed the risks of Action Park's design philosophy, where excitement came first and safety followed only after tragedy. Next up is the Cannonball Loop, a ride so notorious it is often mistaken for an urban legend. Built in 1985, the ride featured a steep, near-vertical drop that transitioned into a complete 360-degree vertical loop. From a physics standpoint, the design was fundamentally flawed from its inception. Most professional roller coasters utilize a clothoid loop, which is an upside-down teardrop shape designed to manage centrifugal force safely. The Cannonball Loop, however, was a perfect circle. This meant that the G-forces experienced by riders were not only extreme, but unevenly distributed, putting massive, unpredictable strain on the human neck and spine. The testing phase of the Cannonball Loop is perhaps the most harrowing chapter in the park's history. When management first sent crash test dummies down the slide, the dummies reportedly emerged from the other end decapitated or missing limbs. Employee testimony confirms that Gene Mulvihill offered staff members $100 bills to test the slide themselves. When the ride finally opened to the public for a brief window in the summer of 1985, the injuries were immediate. Riders emerged from the exit with bloody noses, severe back pain, and shucked skin where the friction of the slide had peeled back layers of flesh. After several riders complained of deep lacerations on their backs, park officials inspected the interior of the tube. They discovered that the foam padding was embedded with human teeth, dislodged from previous riders whose mouths had been slammed shut by the sheer force of the loop. After witnessing the sheer volume of injuries and the total lack of professional safety engineering, the state ordered the ride closed permanently. As injuries and lawsuits piled up, Action Park faced a growing problem that could no longer be ignored: insurance. It was pretty hard to insure rides that were clearly designed to injure people, so insurers either demanded massive premiums or walked away entirely. Rather than scaling back rides or operations, Eugene Mulvihill chose a different approach. Mulvihill effectively self-insured the park. Great American Recreation set aside its own funds to cover injury claims and lawsuits. This allowed Action Park to continue operating rides that insurers would never approve, but it also meant the company was personally absorbing enormous financial risk. Over time, the sheer volume of lawsuits, in the hundreds, overwhelmed the system. By the mid-1990s, the financial pressure became impossible to manage. Great American Recreation filed for bankruptcy, and Action Park closed in 1996. In the end, the same strategy that kept Action Park alive helped bring it down. But I mean, if a place built on chaos can go this far without consequences, it raises a bigger question. When risk turns into harm, who's actually the worst person in history?